welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us on another episode. We appreciate you being here. We have another great guest, Lynne Spollen, with us here with Equitable Title. Lynne, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I am a senior escrow officer with Equitable Title, as Marlo said. I started out in New York, where I was born and raised, and about 25 years ago decided to make the big move out to Arizona and stayed in the title insurance business, and eventually wound up here.
So you say you moved out here 25 years ago. What brought you here?
The weather, golf, the sun.
Also, are you still active in that community? You still do get out there much?
Yeah. I don't get out as often as I'd like, but yeah, I do still get out to play golf.
Okay. So New York, the big city, small, where were you in New York?
Long Island, about an hour outside of New York City.
Okay. And so I guess when you left there, did you have any big ideas of what it would be like here in Arizona, or what were you thinking?
Well, I thought that the pace would be a bit slower, which it is in some ways, but in other ways it's just as busy because in escrow we do a lot of things that the attorneys back in New York do.
Mm-hmm. That
so that keeps us busy, and I'm just loving it.
Okay. So when you got into the industry, what was it that brought you into it? How did you get into the industry?
Well, I was a music major in college, and a friend of mine had been working for Chicago Title at the time. Mm-hmm. So she said they were looking for people for summer jobs. And so I said, great, and applied and started working for Chicago Title, graduated from college and stayed in the business ever since then.
Okay. It's so funny. I kind of got in the business just on a whim as well too. I always think there's not very many people, I don't think, who get in this business saying, yeah, as a kid I just knew I was going to be a loan officer or a real estate agent or a title, right? We don't even know this kind of exists, especially
yeah.
your particularly what you do.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I really didn't know it existed until I got into the business myself. So tell me a little bit about your days. Like, what does a day look like for you?
Well, usually what we're doing is taking in new contract offers, opening escrow on them. We order the title searches. We also take in the earnest money, which people put down to show that they're serious about their offer. Then we clear title as well, any defects or liens on title. Then we draw documents and arrange for signing appointments and closings. And once that happens, then we have to coordinate with the lenders. We get documents back to them, they approve us to fund, they send us their money, the buyers send us their money, and then we record and we fund everything and everybody's happy and closed.
I like it. It seems that smooth, right? But there's always these little hiccups along the way.
Yes.
It's funny. I got into the business as a loan officer, and so I really didn't understand or appreciate much of what you guys did. In fact, everything was always your fault. Like, there was an issue, title did it, right? Escrow did it. So tell us, what's a big misconception about what you do, or what's a misconception you think about what you do?
I think a big one is that when things get down to the last minute and we still are waiting for loan documents, it's always title's fault.
Right. I mean, I've done it myself. I'm like, we sent the docs over, we don't know why they're not closed yet. So
Exactly. But usually it's, we're waiting for the loan documents and we're getting those last minute, thrown at us. And I understand that, the lenders are under a lot of pressure and they're trying to get all of their paperwork in order. And now with the new rules about the closing disclosures having to be issued 3 days ahead of time from closing, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody. So that's been a particular challenge that I think all escrow officers are undergoing right now.
Well, what are some things you do to, I guess, mitigate those problems that you foresee? What are some things you do?
Well, the thing is we have to keep everybody cool and calm because usually the buyers are freaking out at that point. So, we tell them, okay, don't worry about it. We'll get a mobile notary out to sign you, and we'll get documents back and over to the lender. And we usually are able to do that and get everybody closed same day. Sometimes it's a problem on the lender's side. They have an internal condition or something that, they can't clear, or they miss their wire cutoff time or whatever. But for the most part, we're able to get everybody done.
Cool.
So
I appreciate you sharing those things, because again, even being in the industry and being a professional, sometimes you really don't understand what's going on the other side of the table there. So thanks for sharing that. You mentioned something music earlier on, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. What were you studying? Anything in particular, or?
I was a voice major.
Okay, so you can sing?
I used to sing a lot.
Awesome. Did you grow up singing?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I was always in the chorus and stuff in school, and just kind of expanded on it, and decided to go into voice. And I also danced for a very long time, ballet and toe and everything. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm a cultural person as well.
All right. So, as a kid, when you thought of growing up and being who you were going to be, what did you think? What did you think that was going to be?
That's a good question. I think everybody thinks they're going to be an actress or something. So that's probably one of the things I remember wanting to be. So.
Okay. So, do you still have that little bug in you at all?
No.
No?
No, not at all.
Life's gotten in the way?
Life is good, and I'm happy where I am.
Okay. So are your family still back in New York?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. My mom and dad are still back in New York. They're 88 and 90 years old.
Wow.
And my sister and brother-in-law and their kids and their children are back there. And so my daughter and I are the only ones out here.
Do you get back much often?
Yeah, we were going back every year or so, and then, COVID hit, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get back for my dad's 90th birthday, which I really wanted to do.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, but it's something to look forward to, so that's what we're looking forward to, hopefully this year, maybe.
I hear you. It's funny. I got my little baby. She sees the gray on my hair, and I was like, "Dad, you have white hair. I don't want you to get old and die." I'm like, "Come on, I got some time." So yeah, I look forward to being 90 one day. Right.
I hope I reach it too.
Right, for sure, for sure. Well, so I wanted to again just talk a little bit more about kind of what brought you here and what drives you in the industry. You've been in it for a long time. And I did your job for about 3 months, and I was like, I lost all my hair at that time. That's when it happened. So what like keeps you coming and keeps you motivated and still smiling? Every time I walk in the office, you're smiling. So how do you deal with that?
Well, every escrow is different, and every escrow is interesting, and you meet some very interesting people along the way. When I was in New York, what I would do was go to the closings at the various attorneys' offices and banks. And here, it's very different. Escrow runs the whole show as far as the title insurance industry goes. When I moved here, I was fortunate enough to be paired with an escrow officer who taught me how to do mobile home escrows and investor escrows. So I learned a lot in a very short time. And after that, I worked, when the market crashed, I worked with a lot of short sales. So I got my short sale certification as well. And then started acquiring investors. I don't know how that happened, but I had one investor who passed my name on to another, and it just kept mushrooming to the point where at one time 90% of my business was investor business. So what we did, my sales rep and I did, was we got all the investors together for a happy hour. Okay. And they loved it because they were trading deals together and creating business. So it worked out really well. So after that, we always did investor meetings once a month. And we usually got about 30 to 40 investors who would come. And then we started getting guest speakers. We'd get appraisers or building code men in mortgage people. Anybody who, the investors wanted to have come in and talk.
Great.
So it worked out really, really well.
Right. So even on your side of things, I talk with agents usually in the chair over there, and it's all about, relationships and meeting new people and bonding. And it doesn't sound like there was anything different from what you do as well. It's relationships and bonding with people as well, too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, appreciate that. You said you meet a lot of interesting people. Is there maybe a horror story or a crazy story that you have that you feel appropriate will be able to share with us?
I do have one, actually. When I lived in New York, I used to close for 4 or 5 different title companies, and I was the only closer that would go into Manhattan to do closings.
Why is that?
Because a lot of people from Long Island didn't want to make that trip in, but the money was really good, so I did it. And one of the owners of one of the companies called me one day and he said, Lynn, I want you to do this closing, but I have to warn you, it's a very high profile figure. Okay. So I said, okay. So I said, actress, singer? He goes, no, mafia.
Wow. Okay.
So I went in and not knowing who it was, and it turned out to be one of the highest mafia figures in New York.
Wow.
So probably nationally too. So.
Wow. How did you get through that? Were you feeling like you're on?
Oh, I was so nervous. When I found out who it was, I was so nervous. Wow. Yeah, but it all worked out. And then at the end, he asked me, if I was taking the train back home to Long Island, and I said yes. And he said, well, I'll have my driver take you to Penn Station. I said, no, that's okay, I'll walk. He said, no. He said, my driver will take you. So I was like, okay.
I don't want to be I don't want to be the wrong person here,
exactly,
right?
Walking out of the building and having people open fire on you, because that was going on at the time. But yeah, so that was a little nerve-wracking, but other than that, yeah.
You made it, right?
I did.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you left your home, you came out here. Was that the craziest thing you've ever done, or what would be that?
That was probably the biggest risk-taking I ever did, because I had gotten the job out here in Arizona. It was in Tucson at the time. And my husband was still in his business in New York. So he was trying to wrap that up. So for about 10 months or a year or so, we were bi-coastal. So that was a little rough, but we made it through.
Yeah, here we are, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is there anything you regret at all in life? Anything you want to do over?
People always ask that, and I always say no, because if I did anything differently, I wouldn't be here right now. Right. And life is good, and I don't want to change any of it.
Okay, I appreciate that. So then the follow-up question is then, what will be a lesson you tell the kids, like, hey kids, do this, or hey kids, don't do that? Is there any?
I would say don't be afraid of taking a risk, because there's nothing worse than living with, would've, could've, should've. It's even if you fail, it's well worth it. And I have, made some, I don't want to say wrong decisions, but decisions that didn't work out the way I thought they would. And it just led me to my next step in life, my next path.
I appreciate you sharing that. It's great advice. We've had plenty of people say kind of those same things, like just don't be afraid to live your dreams, and don't be afraid to fail. It's okay.
Yep. The worst that can happen is that you get diverted somewhere else.
Right. Probably a better place for you anyway.
That's right.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So you talked about, having that music career and wanted to maybe be an actor or actress. Growing up or ever, what would be the most, I guess, interesting way you've ever made money, or what would be the most interesting job you've ever had?
The title insurance business.
I say the same thing too. It really is it's an interesting business for sure.
It is, it is. At one time I worked for somebody who had a unique rock and gem business.
Okay.
And I enjoyed that to the point where I'm still interested in gems and minerals today. I really enjoy learning more about that.
Cool.
So
you
yeah.
go like geo hunting or at all? Or?
I don't really, but I do a lot of reading and research into, the mining, how gems are mined and how they're cut. It's really very interesting to me. And if I wasn't in this industry, that's probably what I would go into.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the second career when you're done here then, when you retire? Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to ask kind of about books, things that inspired you. Is there a book that you can think of that inspired you or has inspired you? Or?
Yeah. As I once told you, I was greatly inspired by Joel Osteen. 5 years ago when my husband passed away, I was kind of lost and needed some kind of direction. And I discovered Joel Osteen. And he just put such a positive vibe into me that when I moved up here to the Valley, I joined a Widows and Widowers group. Okay. And I wound up facilitating the group and was able to pass on that positivity to a lot of people. That's cool. And a lot of people, even now to this day, will say to me, you're just so positive, you made me feel so good. And that was just worth all of it. So I would say I have all of Joel Osteen's books. So he's been a big inspiration to me.
Thank you. Appreciate you sharing that. Tell me a little bit about that, like the Widow and Widowers group. What type of things did you guys do to support each other?
Well, it was a support group. It is a support group that meets every week. Okay. And they meet for 2 hours. And it's basically, you tell your story about your spouse or significant other passed away. What you're feeling and going through at the time. And a lot of it is quite painful for some people, but you kind of, pull through it. And that's kind of what I always try to do, is give people hope that you can pull through this and you can get through it. And now today I'm engaged to be married. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hey,
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Cool.
Thank you.
Cool. Hopefully I'm invited to the wedding. Cool.
You will, Marla.
Thank you. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on today and chatting with us a little bit.
Thank you.
I kind of wanted to end it a little bit more about what you do here with Equitable. And is there, I guess, anything that you could say that to help us with your job? Things that make it easier, things that consumers could do maybe to be prepared for buying a home. Is there any advice that you might want to give?
Well, we do have buyers and sellers guides that can direct people through the process, whether they're buying or selling their house. One of the things that we do try to get from people is we have opening documents that we send out when we first open escrow. And when people fill them out, actually fill them out and sign them, it makes our jobs a whole lot easier because we have all the information we need right at our fingertips. So that would be one thing that would really help, becoming a little bit more knowledgeable about that. Okay. So, awesome. Yeah.
Well, where can people find you at? How can we find you?
Well, we're right almost next door. We're on the other side of the building, actually, of Home Smart. And please feel free to call us at 480-889-7000.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you
Thank
coming on and
Marla.
chatting with us.
Thank you.